The neon sign of Pete's Diner flickered in the cold autumn night as Linda wiped down the counter for the 100th time that evening. At 11:45 p.m., most customers had already left, except for one man in an expensive suit who sat in her section, absently stirring his now-cold coffee. His troubled expression hadn't escaped her notice. After 20 years of serving customers, she'd become quite good at reading people. "Would you like a fresh cup, sir?" she asked, already reaching for the coffee pot. The man looked up, his eyes carrying the weight of someone whose world was slowly crumbling. He was a regular at the diner, though usually accompanied by his friend in equally expensive attire. Tonight, he was alone. "Actually," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I think I need someone to talk to, if you don't mind." He gestured to the empty seat across from him. Linda glanced around the empty diner and slid into the booth. "Your friend won't be joining you tonight?" she asked carefully, noting how his expression darkened at the mention. "Tom?" He let out a bitter laugh. "No, I suppose not. Not after what I just discovered." He pulled out his phone, showing her a series of suspicious bank transfers. 15 years of friendship, and this is how he repays my trust." Linda's heart raced as she recognized some of the names on those transfers, names belonging to the shady characters who'd been meeting Tom at the diner late at night over the past few months. She took a deep breath, knowing her next words could change everything. "Sir," she said, her hands trembling slightly, "there's something you need to know about Tom. And it's going to be hard to hear." The businessman leaned forward, his coffee forgotten. As Linda began to speak, neither of them could have predicted how their lives would transform by sunrise. What she didn't know was that her simple act of honesty would not only save a multi-million-dollar company from collapse but would also set in motion a chain of events that would completely transform her own life. The luxury car that would appear in front of the diner the next morning would be just the beginning of an extraordinary journey neither of them saw coming. Richard Thompson hadn't always been wealthy. Growing up in a small Midwest town, he started his technology company in his parents' garage 30 years ago. Through dedication, innovation, and an unwavering belief in treating people right, he built digital solutions into a $500 million enterprise that employed over 1,000 people. His success story was the kind that inspired others, the small-town boy who made it big without losing his humble roots. Even as his wealth grew, he still preferred his morning coffee at Pete's Diner rather than the upscale restaurants that constantly sought his business. The diner reminded him of his early days when he could barely afford a cup of coffee while working on his first business plan. Tom Mitchell entered his life 15 years ago, when Digital Solutions was still a medium-sized company. Fresh from a prestigious consulting firm, Tom impressed Richard with his sharp financial acumen and seemingly genuine personality. More importantly, he shared Richard's vision of building technology that could help small businesses compete with larger corporations. Their friendship grew beyond the boardroom. Tom became a regular fixture at Richard's family gatherings, holiday celebrations, and weekly golf games. When Richard's wife passed away 5 years ago, Tom was there every step of the way, helping him navigate through the darkest period of his life. It was Tom who convinced him to keep moving forward, to honor his late wife's memory by expanding the company's charitable initiatives. The bond between them was so strong that Richard never questioned Tom's financial decisions. As chief financial officer, Tom had complete access to the company's accounts. Richard trusted him with everything, from major acquisitions to employee pension funds. They worked together seamlessly, with Tom handling the numbers while Richard focused on innovation and client relationships. Their shared lunches at Pete's Diner became a weekly tradition. They would discuss business strategies, share personal stories, and plan for the company's future. The other customers and staff knew them as the inseparable duo, the kind-hearted CEO and his trusted friend, the CFO. Richard had even written Tom into his will, ensuring that if anything happened to him, Tom would have a controlling interest in the company. "Blood doesn't always make family," Richard would often say. "Sometimes family is built on trust and shared dreams." But lately, subtle changes had begun to appear in Tom's behavior. He started canceling their regular lunches, citing mysterious meetings with potential investors. His usual transparent reports became vague and convoluted. When Richard asked questions, Tom would deflect with complex financial jargon or change the subject to Richard's latest technology projects. Still, Richard dismissed his concerns. After all, this was Tom, his best friend, his confidant, the godfather to his grandchildren. The man who had stood by him through triumph and tragedy. The very thought of doubting Tom felt like a betrayal of their friendship. But as Richard sat in Pete's diner that fateful night, staring at the suspicious bank transfers on his phone, he was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth: sometimes the people closest to us can hurt us the most. What he didn't know yet was that a vigilant waitress had been watching, connecting dots he had been too trusting to see. For Linda Walker, every day was a carefully orchestrated dance between responsibilities. Her shift at Pete's diner started at 4 p.m. and ended at midnight, giving her just enough time to catch the last bus home to relieve her elderly mother, who watched Linda's teenage son while she worked. By 6 a.m., she was at her second job, cleaning offices in a downtown building, before heading to her online finance classes by noon. At 42, Linda had learned that life rarely went according to plan. 10 years ago, she was a bank teller with dreams of becoming a financial advisor when her husband's sudden illness turned their world upside down. The medical bills depleted their savings, and after his passing, she found herself starting over with a 7-year-old son and mounting debt. But Linda refused to let circumstances define her future. She took the diner job because it offered flexible hours and decent tips, allowing her to care for her son and slowly chip away at her online degree in finance. The constant interaction with customers became her unofficial study in human nature. She learned to read body language, notice patterns, and understand the stories behind people's eyes. The diner's location near the business district meant a steady stream of suits and ties during lunch hours. Linda observed their conversations, picked up on business terms, and often applied what she learned to her finance courses. Her regular customers appreciated her attention to detail, remembering their usual orders, noticing when they were having a rough day, and offering a kind word or a fresh cup of coffee when needed. Over the years, she developed what her coworkers called her sixth sense about people. She could tell when a business deal had gone sour by the way executives slumped in their booths, or when someone was celebrating a promotion by their barely contained excitement. These observations weren't just idle curiosity, they were her way of staying connected to the financial world she still dreamed of rejoining. Her son often asked why she bothered with online classes when she already worked 2 jobs. Because dreams don't have an expiration date, she would tell him, hoping to teach him about perseverance through example. Every night, after helping him with his homework, she would study until her eyes grew heavy, determined to create a better future for both of them. The diner's regular customers, including Richard and Tom, had become familiar faces in her daily routine. She knew their orders by heart: Richard's black coffee and wheat toast, Tom's elaborate breakfast specials. But it was their conversations that caught her attention, especially in recent months when Tom began having late-night meetings with unfamiliar men in expensive suits who spoke in hushed tones. Linda's background in banking had taught her to notice red flags in financial discussions. The fragments of conversations she overheard during Tom's mysterious meetings set off alarm bells in her mind. Words like offshore accounts and untraceable transfers drifted across the diner when they thought no one was listening. She started keeping mental notes, her old banking instincts kicking in. Though her current life was far removed from her days as a bank teller, Linda never lost her understanding of financial ethics. As she watched Tom's increasingly suspicious behavior, she wrestled with the moral dilemma of getting involved. But seeing Richard's devastated expression that night, she knew keeping quiet was no longer an option. Sometimes, she realized, the right thing to do was also the hardest. It started with small details that most people would have missed. Linda remembered the exact night when Tom's behavior first struck her as odd. It was a rainy Tuesday evening 3 months ago, long after the dinner rush had ended. Tom arrived at the diner around 10 p.m., but instead of his usual spot with Richard, he chose a corner booth, partially hidden behind a fake plant. Over the next few weeks, these late-night meetings became a pattern. Different men would join Tom, always arriving separately and leaving at different times. They carried expensive briefcases, but never ordered more than coffee, speaking in whispers and falling silent whenever Linda approached to refill their cups. One night, while clearing a nearby table, Linda overheard fragments of conversation about moving assets and untraceable accounts. Her years of banking experience made her skin crawl. These weren't typical business discussions. She noticed how Tom would nervously check his phone, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a shifty anxiousness. The most alarming incident occurred when Linda accidentally dropped a spoon near their table. As she bent to retrieve it, she caught a glimpse of documents spread across the table, banking statements with Digital Solutions letterhead. The numbers she saw were staggering, and the destinations of the transfers made her blood run cold. Having worked in banking, she recognized the telltale signs of money being funneled through shell companies. During his regular lunches with Richard, Tom maintained his facade of the loyal friend and trusted CFO. But Linda saw how he would step outside to take phone calls, returning with a different energy. She noticed the subtle changes in his behavior, the way he would deflect Richard's questions about company finances, how he would steer conversations away from certain topics. What troubled Linda most was watching Richard's unwavering trust in his friend. She saw how Tom would play on their friendship, using Richard's grief over his wife's passing to avoid difficult questions. "You focus on healing," Tom would say, "I'll handle the business side." Richard, still vulnerable from his loss, would smile gratefully, unaware of the betrayal unfolding. The final piece fell into place when Linda recognized one of Tom's late-night visitors, a man she remembered from her banking days who had been investigated for financial fraud. The sight of him sharing hushed conversations with Tom in her diner confirmed her worst suspicions. Linda began documenting everything she observed. Dates, times, snippets of conversations, all carefully noted in a small notebook she kept in her apron. She wasn't sure what to do with this information, knowing that coming forward could risk her job or worse. But watching Richard's genuine kindness toward everyone, including her, made the decision increasingly difficult to ignore. The weight of this knowledge kept her awake at night. She thought about her own son, about the values she was trying to teach him. How could she look him in the eye and talk about integrity if she stayed silent while watching someone being betrayed by their best friend? When Richard walked into the diner alone that fateful night, his face bearing the first shadows of doubt, Linda knew it was time. The truth she was about to share would change both their lives forever, but sometimes, she realized, doing the right thing meant taking a leap into the unknown. The morning after Linda's revelation, Richard sat in his home office, surrounded by financial documents and bank statements. His hands trembled as he methodically worked through the evidence, each new discovery feeling like another knife in his back. The numbers painted a devastating picture. Over $50 million had been systematically siphoned from the company through a complex web of fake accounts and shell corporations. Linda's observations had provided the missing pieces he needed. She had given him names, dates, and details of Tom's late-night meetings that corresponded perfectly with suspicious transfers. Armed with this information, Richard had spent the entire night working with his private cybersecurity team, tracking the money trail that Tom had so carefully hidden. At 9 a.m., Richard called an emergency board meeting. The boardroom, usually filled with friendly chatter, was eerily silent as he laid out the evidence. Tom sat at his usual place, maintaining his composed facade until Richard mentioned Pete's Diner. The color drained from Tom's face as he realized his late-night meetings hadn't gone unnoticed. "Would you like to explain these transfers, Tom?" Richard asked, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "Or should we discuss your meetings with known financial fraudsters first?" Tom's carefully constructed world began to crumble. His attempts to deny the accusations fell apart as Richard presented document after document, witness statement after witness statement. The board members watched in shocked silence as 15 years of trust unraveled in a matter of minutes. "You were my best friend," Richard said, his voice breaking slightly. "You were family. Why?" Tom's response was a mixture of defiance and desperation. He spoke of gambling debts, of investments gone wrong, of desperate attempts to recover losses that only led to bigger betrayals. Each explanation felt hollow, each justification a further twist of the knife. The confrontation reached its climax when Tom tried to blame the company's aggressive expansion for forcing his hand. "You were too focused on your charitable projects," he spat. "Someone had to think about profits." Richard stood up, his full height imposing in the suddenly small boardroom. "Those charitable projects helped thousands of people, Tom. While you were stealing from employee pension funds, we were building schools, funding medical research, helping small businesses survive the economic downturn." The corporate security team arrived, accompanied by federal agents who had been notified of the embezzlement. As they led Tom away, he made one final desperate attempt to appeal to their friendship. "Richard, please, think about all we've been through together." Richard watched his former friend being escorted out, remembering countless shared meals, family gatherings, and late-night strategy sessions. "I am thinking about it, Tom," he said quietly. "That's what makes this so much worse." The aftermath was immediate and intense. News crews gathered outside the building as word of the arrest spread. The board moved quickly to freeze accounts and protect assets. Richard's phone buzzed constantly with calls from concerned employees and shareholders. But amidst the chaos, Richard's thoughts kept returning to Linda, the waitress whose courage and integrity had saved his company from a far worse fate. As the sun set on this tumultuous day, he knew exactly how he would show his gratitude. The luxury car he ordered would be just the beginning of how he would change her life. The weeks following Tom's arrest turned digital solutions upside down. Teams of forensic accountants descended on the company, combing through years of financial records. The media frenzy was intense, with reporters camping outside the corporate headquarters, hungry for details about the betrayal that had rocked the business world. Richard found himself working 18-hour days, not just to save his company, but to protect his employees' jobs and pensions. He personally met with major clients, investors, and partners to reassure them about the company's stability. The stress showed in the new lines on his face and the silver that seemed to appear overnight in his hair. But amidst this corporate storm, he didn't forget about Linda. The morning after their fateful conversation, he had sent his personal driver to Pete's Diner with a brand new Mercedes SUV, a gesture of immediate gratitude. Linda's initial reaction was to refuse such an extravagant gift, but Richard insisted. "You saved not just my company," he had told her, "but the livelihoods of over 1,000 families." The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Tom's elaborate scheme had left a trail that even his cleverest accounting couldn't hide. When investigators discovered he had been stealing from the employee pension fund, the charges became even more severe. The man who had once been Richard's closest friend now faced decades in prison. The evidence Linda had gathered proved invaluable. Her detailed observations, combined with her background in banking, helped prosecutors build an airtight case. When asked to testify, she spoke with clarity and conviction, her testimony carrying the weight of someone who had chosen truth over convenience. Throughout the proceedings, Richard was struck by Linda's composure. She never sought attention or reward for her actions. When reporters tried to paint her as a hero, she would simply say, "I just did what anyone should do when they see something wrong." The impact of Tom's betrayal on Richard went beyond financial loss. He struggled with guilt over not seeing the signs earlier, questioning every memory of their friendship. Late at night, he would still find himself at Pete's Diner, sitting in his usual booth, trying to make sense of it all. During these late visits, he and Linda would often talk. He learned more about her life, her struggles as a single mother, her determination to finish her degree, her dreams of returning to the financial world. Her integrity, despite years of financial hardship, made Tom's betrayal seem even more stark. As the legal dust began to settle, digital solutions emerged stronger. Richard's transparent handling of the crisis had actually increased client trust. The company's stock, after an initial drop, rebounded to new highs as investors recognized the strength of its underlying business. But for Richard, the most valuable lesson wasn't about business or money. It was about character. A waitress working the night shift had shown more integrity than his trusted CFO of 15 years. Sometimes, he would later tell his employees, "Our greatest tests come disguised as everyday moments," and our greatest allies can be found in the most unexpected places. What neither Richard nor Linda knew was that this was just the beginning. The next chapter of their story would transform not just their lives, but the very culture of digital solutions itself. 1 month after the dust settled, Richard invited Linda to lunch, not at Pete's Diner, but in his corporate office on the 40th floor overlooking the city. As they sat in his spacious conference room, Linda couldn't help but think about how her life had changed in just a few weeks. The Mercedes in her driveway still felt like a dream, but it was nothing compared to what Richard was about to propose. "Linda," he began, sliding a folder across the polished mahogany table, "I've been doing some thinking. Tom's betrayal showed me that credentials don't equal character. I've read your college transcripts, spoken to your professors from your online courses, and reviewed your old banking records. But more importantly, I've seen your integrity in action." Inside the folder was an employment contract that made Linda's hands tremble. The position? Director of Financial Ethics and Compliance, a new role Richard had created specifically for her. The salary was more than she'd ever dreamed of earning, but it was the opportunity itself that brought tears to her eyes. "But I haven't finished my degree yet," she protested, her voice barely a whisper. Richard smiled warmly. "The contract includes full tuition for you to complete your degree, with flexible hours to attend classes. You'll work directly with our financial team, implementing new oversight procedures. Your experience as a bank teller, combined with your understanding of ethical decision-making, is exactly what this company needs." The transition wasn't easy. Some executives initially bristled at taking direction from a former waitress. But Linda's sharp intellect and practical experience quickly won them over. She approached her new role with the same attention to detail she'd shown at the diner, but now she was protecting millions instead of managing dinner orders. Her son, now able to attend a better school, watched his mother transform from a struggling single parent to a rising corporate leader. "See," she told him one evening, "dreams don't have expiration dates." Linda's first major project was implementing a new financial oversight system she called the Diner Protocol, regular check-ins where employees could report concerns without fear of retaliation. She drew from her years of observation at the diner, creating an environment where people felt comfortable speaking up about potential issues. Richard watched with pride as Linda flourished in her new role. She brought a fresh perspective to the executive team, never losing her down-to-earth approach even as she mastered corporate finance. Her story became legendary within the company, a testament to Richard's belief that character and integrity mattered more than pedigree. As she settled into her new office, a far cry from her diner station, Linda kept a small coffee pot in the corner, serving cups to visitors just as she had at Pete's. "It keeps me grounded," she would say with a smile. And sometimes the best conversations still happen over coffee. By year's end, Linda had not only transformed Digital Solutions' financial oversight but had also become one of Richard's most trusted advisors. Her journey from waitress to executive became a symbol of the company's new direction, one where integrity and observation mattered as much as bottom lines and profit margins. But even greater changes were on the horizon, as Linda's influence would soon extend far beyond just financial oversight, touching every aspect of how Digital Solutions conducted business. Over the next 2 years, Linda's rise within Digital Solutions became a testament to the power of integrity and perseverance. Not only did she complete her finance degree with honors, but she also spearheaded initiatives that revolutionized how the company approached business ethics and employee development. Her signature achievement was the Second Chance program. Drawing from her own experience, Linda created a corporate education initiative that offered employees at all levels the opportunity to further their education and advance within the company. "Talent can come from anywhere," she would say in board meetings. "We just need to be willing to look." The program's first success story was Jenny, a janitor who had always dreamed of working in technology. With the company's support, she completed her computer science degree while continuing to work evenings. Today, she leads one of Digital Solutions' most innovative software development teams. Linda's influence extended beyond the company's walls. She began giving guest lectures at business schools, sharing her unique journey from diner to boardroom. Her message resonated particularly with working parents and career changers who saw in her story the possibility of their own transformation. Richard watched with satisfaction as Linda grew into her role as Chief Financial Officer, a position she earned through merit and dedication. Her appointment raised eyebrows in traditional business circles, but her results silenced any critics. Under her financial leadership, the company's ethical investment strategies actually increased profitability while building unshakable trust with clients and partners. She instituted what became known as Diner Wisdom, regular sessions where employees at all levels could share concerns or ideas over coffee, just as she had once done with Richard that fateful night. These informal meetings led to numerous innovations and helped prevent several potential crises before they could develop. The press began calling Digital Solutions the People's Corporation, highlighting how Linda's influence had created a company culture that valued human potential over pedigree. Fortune magazine featured her in their Most Influential Women in Business issue, but Linda remained grounded. She still visited Pete's Diner every week, sitting in her old section and chatting with her former coworkers. Her son, now in college himself, often told his friends how his mother had taught him the most valuable lesson: success isn't about where you start, but about maintaining your integrity no matter what. As Linda's third anniversary with Digital Solutions approached, Richard made an announcement that would once again transform both their lives. But this time, it wasn't just about business, it was about legacy. 5 years after that fateful night at Pete's Diner, Richard called a company-wide meeting. Standing before his employees, with Linda by his side, he made an announcement that would cement both their legacies. "When Tom betrayed us," he began, his voice carrying across the hushed auditorium, "I thought I'd lost my ability to trust. But life has a way of restoring your faith through unexpected sources." He smiled at Linda. "Today, I'm announcing my gradual retirement as CEO of Digital Solutions. And I'm naming Linda Walker as my successor." The announcement was met with thunderous applause. In 5 years, Linda had earned not just the respect, but the genuine admiration of every department. She had transformed Digital Solutions from a traditional tech company into a model of ethical business practices and employee empowerment. But Richard wasn't finished. "Additionally, I'm establishing the Walker Scholarship Foundation, with an initial endowment of $50 million. This foundation will help hardworking individuals, particularly single parents and service industry workers, pursue their educational dreams while supporting their families." Linda, who hadn't known about the foundation, wiped tears from her eyes as Richard continued. "Sometimes the most valuable things in life aren't the millions in our bank accounts, but the moments of truth where we choose to do what's right, even when it's hard." Under Linda's leadership, Digital Solutions continued to thrive. The company became known not just for its innovative technology, but for its commitment to ethical business practices and employee development. The Walker Scholarship Foundation helped thousands of people transform their lives, creating ripples of positive change throughout communities. Richard didn't fully retire. He remained as chairman of the board, but spent most of his time mentoring young entrepreneurs and supporting charitable causes. He and Linda continued their tradition of weekly meals at Pete's Diner, where they'd often share their story with young servers and dreamers. Pete's Diner itself became something of a landmark, known as the place where integrity changed the course of a corporation. The booth where Linda first told Richard about Tom's betrayal now bears a small plaque, "Where honesty meets opportunity." Linda's son graduated from college and joined Digital Solutions as an entry-level programmer, insisting on earning his way up just as his mother had. He often tells new employees, "Success isn't about the car you drive or the office you occupy. It's about maintaining your integrity even when no one's watching." The story of the Waitress and the Millionaire became more than just a tale of corporate drama. It became a testament to the power of integrity, the value of observation, and the truth that character matters more than credentials. It proved that sometimes the most extraordinary changes begin with a simple choice to do what's right. As for Tom, he served his sentence and eventually wrote a letter of apology to both Richard and Linda. His story became a cautionary tale in business ethics classes, while Linda's became an inspiration for dreamers everywhere. Richard often reflects on how close he came to losing everything, and how salvation came from the most unexpected place. Life's greatest blessings, he likes to say, often come disguised as ordinary moments, and our greatest allies might just be serving us coffee.